checkered pattern or something like that. And that's something that's pretty like universal. Like we need edge detect, like we need to be able to detect a line in almost every case. I want that to change a lot. Maybe like how lines look might be a little different depending on the images. So that's why we allow it to, we basically set different learning rates here. So we set a much smaller, like this e to the -4, like it's much smaller than like e to the -2. So what we're saying is these learning rates affect how much these get changed as we're going through. So if we have a really large learning rate for this layer, when we're learning and we're doing the backpropagation, this layer is going to change a lot. Because later layers, if it's doing something like detecting faces, and we've had it pre-trained, we don't want it detecting faces anymore. So we want it to learn to do something else. But if this earlier one learned how to just detect a line, we want to keep that property because that's a really useful property to us in almost every single case. So we don't want that changing a lot. So that's the idea of these differential learning rates, and that helps us kind of.
Are they applied sequentially, or how they?
Yeah. So for these, they're just in order, and how the FastAI library does is it kind of like you can control this a little, dig deeper into it, but basically what it does is this last one that's like your last layer that you do yourself, and then it kind of like spreads the rest into like the rest of the pre-trained ones. Something we've taught, like I kind of just showed you, Paperspace as well. There's a couple of other ones available as well. There's like Paperspace, there's Floyd Hub, which is pretty good, but I think Paperspace might have a better, I think they have a better pricing structure. Don't quote me on that, but from my quick kind of looks. And actually very recently is something came out called Google Colab, which is basically like your Jupyter notebook. They provide you with Jupyter notebooks and like even more advanced like features in there for like, and they're also completely free. And they just give you a certain amount of like I think GPU time per day, which is like really nice. Which is really nice of them.
12 hours.
Sir?
12 hours.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Which one is that?
Google Colab. I'll send it out. I'll send out like a message about it afterwards. But it's pretty good of them to do. Also, though, just whenever you're using any of these per hour things, remember to turn off your machines because they will charge you even if you're even if you're not running anything. If you didn't turn it off, you can configure it later to turn it off while you're like if it notices that it's like no activity has been going on for a while. It'll turn it off for you. But what I noticed is it's actually not pre-configured, so so you might want to just be careful of that. So now I just want to kind of do like a quick jump through a bunch of other cool development in the space, just like cool areas in the space. Not so much now, I guess, like teaching, but just like sharing like cool things that are going on. One thing, like people who like are like have been a bit more into AI probably know about OpenAI, and they're basically focused on reinforcement learning and also getting one of their biggest things is this thing OpenAI GIF, which is like for anybody that loves like gaming or anything that's like that. It's basically a platform. It's basically a platform for people to train their programs to play different games, like Pac-Man, like various Atari games, Sonic, things like that. So it's kind of like another area of like artificial intelligence. There's a lot more we could talk about in there, and we'll probably have like at least a couple of sessions just potentially just dedicated to that because there's so much over in that area, and it's really cool. And like their like end goal is trying to reach kind of like more of a general intelligence, and they're doing it through gaming because games, it's like a really easy environment to kind of learn in because you don't have the constraints of like the physical world, right? And at the same time, it's like it's something that's cool, it's fun, it's interesting to people, and there's a lot of variety in games. So what they're really trying to build out here is something that like an AI learns how to play one game, you can tell it to play something completely different, and it'll still have the tools it needs to figure out how to play that game as well. And actually something they've been